to look for a specific book in that example. So data needs to be sorted. And that is also a case where the data catalog helps us to get better, to search for things we want to have a look. And if we want to have a look for a French dictionary or a Russian dictionary, Chinese dictionary, as I see it here, Turkish dictionary, it's quite good if you have an index where to search and how to access the data. And that is also a thing where Azure Purview can help us to get better, or to get a better understanding and a better overview about our data estate. So now dive deeper into the topic. As I said, my name is Wolfgang. I live and work in Austria, in Europe. I'm a data consultant. I like and love to work with data. I started my career in the data engineering, data warehousing field, and moved all the way from the data integration, data transformation, data modeling to the reporting. Power BI is one of my specialties, and in the last few years, I've moved more and more into the field of Azure Data Platform, building data warehouses in the cloud, building data platforms in the cloud. And Azure Purview is very, very good to help us better understand existing infrastructure or data infrastructure at customers, and also to get an overview of everything that is stored in our build systems or in already existing systems. What I also do and like is, well, work and speak and organize events for the community. I like to, before the pandemic, I like to travel to events a lot, and I've spoken at various international events. And now I'm talking to my monitor and to my webcam and to you on the other side of the camera. And hopefully let's get back to the in-person events soon. So if you have any questions now, just put them into the chat window. If you have any questions after the session, well, my email address, my Twitter handle, or even connect on LinkedIn if you have any questions afterwards. Now, what is Azure Purview? Azure Purview was announced in December last year as the data catalog version 2 of the Azure infrastructure. And Microsoft calls it a unified data governance service. And data governance, very often if I talk with my customers about data governance, they say, oh my God, data governance. We have to do it, but we don't want to really do it because it's oh my God, all those processes, all those tasks, all those things we have to do. And Azure Purview is a tool that allows you to, or that supports you to get into the field of data governance by providing an infrastructure to map your data across hybrid sources. In organizations, there are not only cloud data sources. There are data sources that live in the cloud. Yeah, they live in the cloud, but there are data sources that live on premises, like an existing ERP system and data warehouse that is still on premises, or I don't know, a file share, a data lake in the cloud. So hybrid sources is the future. It's the current state of data architecture. And Azure Purview allows us to map our data. So building some sort of data map. What it also does, it allows us to discover data within our data islands, within our data map. And in addition, we need to classify the data. GDPR. So is it PII data? Is it secure or data that needs special secure treatment, email address, credit card information, birth date, whatever? So all those things need to have some sort of classification within our data catalog, and Azure Purview supports and allows us to do some automatic classification to not have everything on our side to work and deal and classify everything. So that can be done in an automatic way. What is also very, very important is to understand your data supply chain, because data doesn't live at one place. Data is read from a system, transferred to a system, and sometimes, not sometimes, just skip the sometimes, it's transformed during the data integration from one system to the other. And it's also very, very important to have and get an understanding of your data supply chain within your company. Read product information that is coming from suppliers via CSV files. They are transferred into a database. They are transferred to the data lake afterwards, and so on and so forth. So understanding your data supply chain is also a key understanding and necessity that you need to build up, that you get to know your data. And data, it's not only the technical part, it also involves the business context. So we need to have an option where business users can add their classification. They can bring their business context into our data landscape. So it's not the classification. This field is an email address. You can add some business context, like that entity, that table, or that file contains customer data. So it's more like, I would compare it to a more general description of the data. Get the business context into your data catalog. And what is in Azure Purview? Microsoft, as I mentioned, that screenshot on the previous slide was taken from documentation page. They call it unified data governance. And for unified data governance, well, they said, the Purview team said, we need a unified platform. And the platform itself contains two big parts. It's the data map. The data map is the system that stores the data assets. What is a data asset in the context of Azure Purview? It can be a file in a data lake. That can be a table in a database. That can be a data transformation logic out of Azure Data Factory. That can be a column in a table. And a data asset is a piece of data that is stored somewhere. So data assets are required there, and they are stored in the data map. In addition to the data assets, we have data lineage. So where does my data come from and where does it go to? So Azure Purview is able to collect and store data lineage. So we have data assets, and we've got lineage that connects those two or multiple data assets. In addition, we've got the classification in here that allows us and Purview to specify data information, like that is an email address, that is customer information, that is a customer number, and so on and so forth. As I said, Purview is working on hybrid. So we are able to connect to on-premises sources, and we are able to connect to cloud sources. And even not only Azure data sources, we are also able to connect to Amazon, AWS data sources. In addition, there are operational, analytical, and other types of systems. So Purview allows us to connect to different kinds of systems, like ERP, database, data lakes, and so on systems. So all those systems are mixed and matched together, and they are scanned by so-called Purview scanner or Purview source connections. And during that scanning, there are two parts of the story. The first part is Purview scans the technical structure, like what are the tables in there? What are the columns in there? What are the data types, and so on. Plus, there is the classification, the automatic classification approach that allows us to, Purview, that allows Purview to classify the data and to put some sort of stamp on there that is an email address, and so on. So unified platform. Based on the unified platform, unified experience. And the unified experience, well, there's the data catalog. The data catalog, it provides us with a user interface on the data that is stored in the data map. And the data catalog allows us to search the data in there, which is good because collecting data is one part of the story, but we need to be able to work with the data. So search within your data catalog is very, very important. Business Glossary, I already talked about that a little bit, gives some sort of business relevant information onto the data in the data map. So customer data is there, product information, and so on. And data lineage, it's the same here. Data lineage is and can be displayed in the data catalog. So catalog is the one thing, and data insights. It's there, and I will show you the current state of the implementation, which is it's there, but it's not the best implementation so far. Data insights allows us to report the data that is stored in your data catalog. It allows us to have a look at the different file types, at the different scan results, and so on and so forth. And data insights, it can be important if the implementation gets better, to be honest. As of today, it's there. It's not even a version 1. And Azure Purview, as of today, is in preview. It's still in preview. So it's not the GA version. It's not the version 1. It's a preview version as of today. And last but not least, there are connections, required connections, because Purview needs to scan the sources like Power BI, SQL Server, Azure Synapse, other data services, and so on and so forth, and get the structure from somewhere. And for Azure Synapse or Data Factory, there is some sort of integration in there that you can directly search your data catalog without leaving your Synapse Studio or Data Factory environment. And what is really, really important and quite underrepresented in many cases, it's the existence of an open API. Azure Purview is a service. You start the service, you start your Purview subscription, and then you have a Purview service running. There are sources and scanners for multiple systems, but there is also an open API that is based on Apache Atlas, which is an open source data governance framework, and that allows us to work with the data in the data map. The open API, the Apache Atlas API, allows us to create new data assets, to create new data lineage information, and to add classification in there. It even allows us to start scanning from the outside. And why is that important or required? Azure Purview brings a list, comes with a list of supported scanners and sources, but not all systems are supported as of today. And with the open API, the Apache Atlas, it's your turn to put metadata into your data catalog. And it's quite easy. There is a add asset method, there is a add lineage, and you just add your relationship between two assets, and well, there's metadata in the catalog that you created. Yeah, that slide just shows it a little bit more detailed. It's basically the same I talked about. And with that, I'm gonna have a quick look at the chat if there are any questions. So don't be afraid about the t-shirt. So no comments, it's not the deal of the day. So if you have any comments or questions, just put them into the chat. If there are no questions, I would say I'm gonna switch to the demo and let's see Azure Purview in action. So I'm gonna move to the Azure Portal. And within the Azure Portal, it's very easy to create a new instance of Azure Purview. Azure Purview, it's quite easy to create if you have a unique name. So Perfuse session Wolfgang. And there is currently in the preview not that many options available. There is the capacity units, the platform size. You can choose between 4 capacity units and 16 capacity units. Those are, I compare it to, let's think about virtual machines or cluster nodes that are backing up your Purview platform. So between 4 or 16 is your choice. And I assume if Purview comes out of preview, we can select those different levels, and those will be some, subscription methods, some SKUs involved, like the data catalog basic, the C0 level, and the C1 level, and also for the data insights. There are some hints about the possible license levels and so on. So that is the thing you need to do, and that is everything. So I won't create a new one because I've already prepared a Purview instance for you. And if you open an already created Purview instance in the Azure Portal itself, there's not that many to look at. It's the access control you can have a look at, but there is one thing, it's the Azure Perfuse Studio, and it's that link that opens the development environment, the user interface to our Purview data catalog. In the Purview catalog, we've got 4 big buttons in here. If you are new to a service, I would recommend to have a look at the Knowledge Center or the documentation. So Knowledge Center is available here, or we've got the question mark over there, Knowledge Center, guided tour, and so on. So Knowledge Center, there are documentation links, there are videos in there, blog entries, and what is Purview, how you can work with it, and to have an easy start. But Purview, in the beginning, a Purview catalog, it's empty. What we need to do is we need to register sources. We need to register some sort of links to existing data sources. So as of today, Purview is not that kind of system where you start a scan and Purview scans all your data assets within your company. You need to know, okay, there is a database server, and I would like to register that database server somewhere. And that is the part where register sources comes into play. What you see in my demo environment, I've already registered some data sources having different source types. So we've got Azure resource groups, we've got databases in here, we've got a SQL Server database and on-premise SQL Server database. We've got a data lake, we've got Power BI integrated in here. And it's quite easy to register a new source. So sources are listed here, and they can be filtered, like all those Azure data platform services like blob storage, data lake storage, databases in the cloud, or even databases, local databases on premises, Oracle, Hive metadata, Teradata, SQL Server. Or if you have an SAP system in your company, you can specify the connection to your SAP system. So if I select that one, I'm gonna go here, we need the application server, system number, and so on. And there's the question for a collection. And a collection within Azure Purview is a collection of data sources. And you can group your data sources into logical collections in your data map. And within your data map, well, that list doesn't really look like a data map. So if I switch to the map view over here, oh, there are some boxes in here, but there are some pluses in there, and we can expand those boxes, and all those white boxes, those are collections. So we can group and have and create some sort of hierarchy within our data landscape. So we've got a business intelligence parent collection, we've got the data lakes collection, and within the data lakes collection, we've got data lakes in the US and data lakes in Europe. We've got Azure Synapse related data stuff. We've got databases listed in there, and we've got a collection that is currently empty, and that is called the production databases. And we've got Azure in there and so on. So everything you can work with and create sources needs to be put into a collection. And what I really, really like is that graphical view. So it's the data map, and it allows us to have some sort of more a logical way and a hierarchical way of creating and mapping our data estates. But creating sources is one part, but the source itself, if we go here for the data lake, for example, it's only the name of the data lake and some credentials. Credentials for the connection to the database or to the data lake, they are all stored in Azure Key Vault. So nobody really needs to enter a password in there. Nobody really needs to add some user identity or whatever into Purview. It's all stored in Azure Key Vault. The source definition, it's more of a logical information. What we need to add now is we need to add a scan. And within a scan, we add some sort of information how the data source is scanned. And if I add a new scan over here, we can name that one. We need to select the managed identity, so the credentials. Let's do a test connection if it works. Yes. And next, we need to scope our scan. In my example, I selected a data lake. And within that data lake, I've got folder structures. I've got data containers. I've got folder structures in there. And I select everything. So if there are new entries or folders added in the future, that scope or that scan should include that new scopes in addition in the future. And now there's one thing that is really, really important. There's a concept called scan rule set. And the scan rule set is the combination of what artifacts should be scanned during the scan and what classification rules should be applied on those assets that are found. So for the data lake, you can use system default. So for the data lake, for databases, and for every kind of system, there are system default scan rules that are provided by Microsoft, and you can select that one. But you can also create new and custom scan rules, like a data community scan rule. We can have a look at the data community scan rule. And what you see here is what are the file types that should be scanned. Within a data lake, you can just put your files in there, and there can be CSV files, Parquet files, Excel files, Word files, whatever. And you can specify that the file types you want Purview to analyze. And you also can specify the list of classification rules that should be applied during the scan process. And there are more than 200 classification rules provided by Microsoft. For example, to find data in your database, in your data lake that follows the structure of an Austrian passport number, or an EU debit card number, or a credit card number, or you want to analyze data and classify it as an email address if it contains email addresses. And what you can also do is you can add custom rules. So you can specify your own classification rules. In my case, Postleitzahl is zip code. So I created a new rule that is powered by a regular expression in the background that does the scanning. And if data in a specific column or in a file follows the rule of my zip code regex, that file, that asset gets the classification of zip code. And I'm gonna select that one, go next, and you can define the schedule of your scan. If you want to have it recurring, like once in a month or once in a week, or just run it once. In my demo environment, I've added no recurrence schedule because my data sources do not change that much, and I just added a run once trigger. And if a scan, like the scan data community runs, it connects to the data source. In our case, to the data lake. It scans for files that are following the file format pattern, and then it does some inventory. We've got file A, we've got file B, we've got file C, we've got those columns in those files, because CSV files, we can extract some columns in there, and we can add some information. If it's not a data lake, in contrast, for a database, Purview can scan the metadata and get out that one is a number column, that one is a character column, that one is a date column, and add all the technical metadata out of that. And as a second step, the classification rules are applied. So Purview scans, I think in the documentation it's listed in more detail. As far as I remember, the first 100 or 1,000 rows, and it scans the data and tries to match your classification rules, the regular expressions on there. And classification rules are applied, and if, for example, 60% of your scanned rows indicate that that rule is followed, they get the classification. And that is the thing or the process that is done during a scan. So extract the technical metadata, the file types, the file names, the path, and the data lake or the database tables, the schemas, the structure, the column, the data types, and so on. And second, the classification. So data sources need scans that are applied in order to be filled and to get some information in there. And I'm gonna go back to the data catalog, to the initial screen. And there is a thing that is called browse assets. And if I go to the browse assets in my demo environment, you've got the list of the different technical services, the different technical technologies that power your data platform, your data estate in your company. For example, we can have a look at Azure SQL databases in there. And as you see, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 databases listed in there. And we can have a look at the demos database, for example. And within that demos database, we've got a schema, and we've got tables and views in there. And we can have a look at the customers table. And what you see here is the technical metadata plus some classification applied. The technical metadata, it's here. So technical metadata is here. And on the left side, we've got the classifications in here. And classifications can be applied on the asset level. So customers table contains email addresses, and or at schema classification level. And schema within a database table, that leads us to the list of columns. And the list of columns, it's the technical name, company name, email address, first name, last name, phone column, and so on. And we've got the data type in there. So that is the technical infrastructure that is, or not infrastructure, that is the technical metadata that is extracted. In addition, the classification. So Purview found that in the phone column, there are, or there can be EU mobile phones numbers, EU phone numbers, and or US phone numbers stored in there. So that is done based on the first, let's say, 1,000 rows of that table. And that is the classification that can be added in here. What is also very good to know and good to define, what are the experts? What are the person or the team that knows how to deal with that database, that system, that part of your data lake? And you can add your experts or your technical owners. In my case, I've added 2 experts. So my person, myself, I'm the technical expert, and my colleague, well, he's the content expert. And that one can't be added by Purview because Purview doesn't know who's the owner or who's the technical expert. That can be done by editing the assets. So it's your part where you can modify the information that is in the data catalog that came from the automatic inventory, and you can add your information, like adding a person in there. And let's see, yeah, I'm already added, so you can search your Azure Active Directory and add other members of your team. What you can also do is you can add and override the classification, like the middle name. Okay, the middle name, well, that could also be like the person's name. So I'm going to add the classification of person's name in there. You could also change the data type, which I wouldn't really recommend because Purview reads the technical information from the database. And if you change it from text to number in your data catalog, well, why should you do that? And there's one thing that I've talked about, but I haven't shown you in Purview. It's the glossary term. It's the business glossary. And I'm going to save it here. And shouldn't have pressed the save button now. Do you have any questions? No questions so far. So what you can do, you can add business glossary terms at the asset level, in our case at the table level, or at the schema level. At the asset level, you can add business glossary. I've got English and German names in there, but we've got business partner and we've got business partner customer as a more specific term. And we can apply those information pieces, the glossary terms, to our asset that is called customer, which relies to a table in our SQL database. And if I save that one, I've got the glossary terms applied here. So we've got that one over there. The glossary terms can be administrated by people that have the certain rights, and you can build a hierarchy of business glossary. So I've got the general term business partner, I've got a customer, I've got supplier, which is a business partner, and I've got a preferred supplier, which is a supplier, which is a business partner in our case. And if we go to the customer and hit the edit button, we can change the status. So that one is approved. We can add some sort of relationships, like customer is a synonym for the German. Geschäftspartner means business partner, Kunde means customer. So we have a synonym in our business glossary. We can save that one and we can have a look the other way around. I'm at the business partner customer business glossary, and I can list all the assets that have the results or the glossary terms applied. And what you see here, it's, well, the thing that really powers the Azure Purview data catalog, it's the search. And the search is very, very powerful. So let's go to the overview page, and you can search your data catalog, like just look for customer. And if I filter or have a look at the list of entities, the list of assets that contain some customer information, well, it's not that obvious if they contain customer information or if they are only named customer whatever. So we've got SQL Server tables, we've got Power BI data flows, we've got Azure Data Factory copy activities, we've got SQL Server views, we've got files in our data lake, and so on and so forth. 21 different pieces, search results in there. What you can do is you can filter your search result, because you know that customers' data is stored somewhere in a database. So filter that one. And you can even filter it down to a specific database server. You can filter it down to a specific database and even to a specific schema. And if you are there, just go to the data asset and you are at the customer's entity. But what is also very nice, we can have a look at all the customer assets and we can use the classification. So we want to have all the data assets that contain an email address. And we would like to have a look at all the data assets that contain phone numbers. And we can have a look at the DBCC Kunde, which is one of my custom classifications, which defines a customer number starting with KU for Kunde, customer in German, and after followed by 4 digits. So we can have a look at that one and filter all those entries that only contain the classification of Kunde. And if I have a look at the CSV file in there, and the CSV file, it's stored in the data lake. And we've got the information, like in the column which has the header Kennung, there is Kundeninformation, customer information in there. And even as a next step, so in that case, it's not working. I don't know why. Let's go over here and have a look in here because that part is missing. Yeah, the data lineage. Data isn't stored on one place. It's flowing in your data estate. And there is one table that is called Kunde, customer, in a SQL Server database. And there is some data transformation. There is some data copy activity, Azure Data Factory, which writes the data to a file in the data lake. And what you can have a look here is you can even have a look at all the columns that are read from the SQL Server table, transferred using the copy task in Azure Data Factory, and written somewhere into the data lake. And that is the magic where the different data islands are connected together. And it's not your part of the work that you are drawing the lines. It's Azure Purview that extracts the metadata information, that extracts the SQL Server information, that extracts the database, the data lake information. And it also extracts the logging information of the data factory process activity. And it connects those items. And we can have a look and switch to the information in the data lake. And we've got the schema information in there. And we can have a look, yeah, where does the data come from? So data lineage, it's very, very powerful because not only one place where your data is stored, data is constantly transferred from one part to the other. And there is also one thing that is really nice and important. It's Power BI. Power BI, yeah, it's there to bring you interactive reporting. based on your data estate. And Power BI needs data to visualize. And there are Power BI reports, for example, like that one, the Purview demo report. And that one is stored in a workspace in Power BI, in your Power BI environment. And even for Power BI reports, you get the lineage information, like the Purview demo report is based on a Purview demo report dataset. So the dataset is here. And that dataset is querying and getting the data from a SQL Server database. And that SQL Server database, it's also part of our data catalog. So all those data islands, if it's SAP, data lake, database, whatever, up to the report in your Power BI environment, Purview allows us to connect all those pieces together. And with the powerful classification engine that comes with more than 200 system classification rules, in addition, you can create your custom classification rules to classify all your data that is available in your company. And on the next step is the data catalog that can be searched, that can be filtered. You can have a look for different information pieces. You can filter it down to, okay, I only want systems that are my systems, where I'm the registered contact, where we have customer business glossary applied. So very powerful search possibilities. And with that, I'm at the end of our round trip through the Azure Purview, the Azure Data Catalog solution of Microsoft. And as I said in the beginning, data is everywhere, and data gets more every day, and data systems in your company get more and more every day. A new system is added. Another one is, well, put out of service, and nobody really knows that that one isn't really serviced anymore. And data is transferred from one part to the other. And if you don't know where your data lives, it's not that easy. And Azure Purview can help you. If you want to try it, go to the Azure Portal, create a new Purview instance, get the information to connect to your data sources, and let Purview scan your data sources. And with that, I'm at the end of my session, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any questions.
Wolfgang, thank you so much. That was I as an organizer, I haven't been able to stay in the room for more than 5 minutes at a time, so I need to come back and watch this because I do a lot of information management stuff, and I've been very interested in the features that are coming out in this area. But thank you.
Thanks for having me. And if you have questions afterwards, you have my contact details. Just ping me on one of those, or there are multiple channels. Yeah, ask me questions if you want. Absolutely. And with that, enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the day full of free learning, and happy data cataloging, I would say. Bye.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Take care.
You too. Bye.